Hi, my name is Amy. Thank you very much for watching, and let's make some bad financial decisions together. This is for entertainment purposes only, so if you're entertained, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. So, none of these funds I'm going to talk about today, I am encouraging you to buy or influence you in any way. Just putting that out there, not financial advice. So, you have all heard about YieldMax's new reverse splits by now, I'm pretty sure. And they announced on Friday evening that they will do it with 12 different funds. But personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I am not concerned about any of the single stock tickers, the ones that do cover calls on single stocks, those doing a reverse split. Though to me, there is a stigma for reverse splits. But, and I'm just using this as an example, to me, the worst part of reverse splits are for companies and actual stocks like LCID, Lucid. Well, if you're a company and you have things like fundamentals that we need to look into, and you've run your stock into the ground and the value of your company into the ground enough that you need to do a reverse split, that is a problem. It's also, if you're really into speculation, a good chance, maybe, not guaranteed, of buying a company while it's hated and down by, 60, 70, 80, 90%, buying it up and waiting a few years, and then if they rehab, then you've made a lot of money. So I'm not encouraging speculation, but to me, that would be the logic behind Lucid is reverse splitting, it's in the shitter, it's not doing super great, but now let me pay attention to see what they are doing to rehab their company, and do I want to speculate on it now? And that is a very personal decision to you. I personally would rather stick with things like the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100. If I had enough money to live off of that stuff, I would rather just go with the indexes and like gold and stuff that I'm pretty sure is not going to go down to zero. But that's just my own risk tolerance. I was just explaining my impression of how reverse stock splits go. If it is for a company, there is stigmatized, and it should be stigmatized, and it has a bad reputation because obviously it's bad. But things like MSTU, that's all of the 2x leverage ones, which we can also argue you shouldn't be in leverage. You should just swing trade leverage. Don't be in leverage all the time. Okay. But those funds basically just are wrappers on the underlying, and they're simply just 2x resetting on the day. So if the underlying does really, really bad, or MSTU, when it did the forward split, basically MSTR had done so well that it was now, the price of MSTU was out of the price range where doing options is feasible and accessible. And things like leverage products are meant, a lot of people do use them for doing like their option wheels and things like that. So it definitely makes sense to do a forward split to make the stock cheaper so that more people are able to do options. There would be higher level of options on it. But the same thing goes with, MSTR has lost 40% of its value since 3 months ago. And I don't know if that's the exact number, but it's lost a significant amount. These 2x leverage funds are going way down, and they're hurting by a lot. So if MSTU did a reverse split, I'm not going to say, there's something wrong with MSTU. I'm going to say, yeah, that makes sense. MSTR has been kind of shit, and it's a 2x leverage. So, of course, it can reverse split. And then I'm more excited to be doing options because I've been letting up on doing my option with MSTU because it's it's less than $5 now. Like, there's no breath in the options for me to be out of the money, because like MSTX is still like, it's still like $12, so I can go further out of the money, which is what I prefer when I'm doing options on a 2x leverage. Like I don't actually want to own these 2x leverage ones. Anyways, so that's my thoughts on this is YieldMax doing cover calls on these ETFs is not necessarily like the damning thing that some people are trying to push it as. I think the argument for YieldMax in general could just be, well, you're trying to always return the implied volatility, and since they are high implied volatility, you do lose your bet quite often, and because it's cash settle, it becomes expensive, and you get your you get capped on the growth side of the stock. So there are other options besides YieldMax now in order to get a relatively high distribution and get growth. So there's that. But this is this is what they offer, and this is what they have. So if you want high yields and you want to choose to reinvest, then that's your prerogative. So I think for me, though, the most controversy definitely comes with ULTY. And the reason for that is that when you read the prospectus, they're allowed to pick any tickers they want. They're pretty much allowed to set any strike price that they want. Like, I don't know if they have a mandate to stay within a certain band. I guess they do. They've defined the upper band, but they have every fancy option tool at their disposal, and yet the price of it keeps going down. And I think the changes that they made were effective, but because they still held a bunch of high IV companies that I kept looking at the underlyings because everybody's wondering why these things are going down. And if I had, $3 million in my account, I would probably take a portion of it and basically put it in almost all the things that they had. But it doesn't mean they're not speculative. And when you speculate and you gamble, you're going to lose. So they lost a few of their bets. Even in a bull market, individual stocks can go down. They were in high implied volatility things, and the price went down. But it went down from like a $10 stock, so there wasn't that much to go down. So if you actually look, and this is not me endorsing ULTY, but if you look just from the 12th and the 13th, which I believe was Wednesday, right? So Wednesday and Thursday, we had a pretty bad down day. If you take QQQI, ULTI, ULTY, KYLD, and WPay, which ULTI, KYLD, and WPay are things being thrown around as alternatives to ULTY, and QQQI is what the people that say I told you so said you would be better off just being in QQQI. So in those last 2 days, your total return from QQQI would have been the best. You still don't have $10,000 at the end of the day, but it was a pullback. And so ULTI has the closest makeup of the strategy of what ULTY has. And so far, it's had bigger swings in the price than ULTY. Like, it's gone down further, and I'm gonna have to observe this more because I don't like the fact that it goes down so much. But if it does swing down and then it swings up dramatically, if it might just be one of those things where you really do have to say, like, well, now the market's down 30% and now I can be in ULTI, and then it'll shoot up. But I can't say I recommend ULTI at this point. It just came out. And KYLD wishes to be excluded from this narrative because It's nothing like ULTY or ULTI, it just came out at the same time. But a lot of people do trust Curve to be more careful with their NAV, but they were down worse than ULTY in total returns if you put $10,000 in each of them on the 12th. So that's also one of those things where it would have a lower yield and maybe the price will appreciate more than ULTY because ULTY is trying for maximum income. And then I have a beef with people, well, not really a beef, but I just don't feel comfortable saying like, you should sell ULTY and buy WPay. I don't think that's how that works. I think they should be evaluated separately. And if WPay and the amount of leverage that it has and the companies that it has within the makeup you're comfortable with, then yeah, WPay is fine, but it also went down more than ULTY. So I think it's great that ULTY is changing the makeup of what is actually constituting ULTY a couple of weeks before it does the reverse split. That way we have a couple of weeks to know what the new premium that we're going to be getting, the distribution, because when they put the lower IV things in there, we are going to get lower distributions. But the bet there is that with lower IV, better fundamentally sound stocks, the price will be more stable. So if they have, like, the downward protection is working, if they fix the actual what's in the product itself, then yeah, do the reverse split. I actually was one of the people in that in the Twitter spaces that was like, it might be bad publicity. They might get some pushback now, but I mean, ULTY's already a hated ETF at the moment, but I personally would like to do options on ULTY. I think at around $40. That, well, first of all, that is kind of expensive for me, but it's kind of like Misty, where, okay, I'm doing options on Misty, but the worst case is I get assigned to the stock and then I'm getting, well, I don't know with ULTY because they just changed what's actually in that, but like a 50, 60, 70% yield. Like, that's fine. I can do the wheel off of that. I can sell clever calls and get additional premium off of that and then get my shares called away because it appreciated in price and then start the wheel again. I don't believe ULTY will ever be a stock that recovers in price quickly. Mostly just due to the fact that they are trying to return the most yield possible, so they do put the cover calls and the call spreads quite close to the money, and so you do get your, like the upward movement of the stock is capped quite a bit harder than any of their other offerings. But I've always viewed ULTY more as this is a neat experiment. I'm curious to see how it's going to work out. I have had to tax loss harvest this in the past at least a few times, and hopefully when I have been talking about it, even though I am in it, recently it was like 30% of my portfolio, that I never tried to encourage anyone to get into ULTY because it's been really apparent for quite a while that it's really not something that a sane person should be putting a significant portion of their portfolio in. I like ULTY on like a philosophical level. I think it's neat that you trust a management team to pick a stock, to get the correct amount of implied volatility, protect it as much as they need to, and then we get the most amount of yield possible. I think that's interesting. I think where it's falling flat is that since it's lost so much money, a lot of people have just lost faith in the management team, which is just a consequence of the type of fund it is. I can understand where I think WPay and like YieldMax, and I think I should probably look it up, but I think like Rex is also coming out with a fund of funds for their half and half. Like WPay is neat, but they don't have the flexibility of being able to get in and out of funds when something goes off the rails and just plummets into like the core of the earth. So, and it's becoming interesting as we get more historical data about, well, maybe just having too much choice with the fund managers and being encouraged to be in high implied volatility things that ignore the fundamentals. Like maybe that's not the route that we should go in our own portfolios, but I will still be covering ULTY because I still have 1,000 shares, which will be turning into 100 shares. But I think it's an interesting fund, even if it is a terrible idea to have a large portion of your portfolio in it. It just, it's a shiny object, something that you're going to have to figure out if you even want a portion of your portfolio in it and allocate a small enough portion that's not going to bring down your entire portfolio. And it is what it is at this point. So we do have the other 11 ones that honestly I don't like. Tesla, Nvidia, Coin, like that's fine. And then we have, I think that's Ybit, Moderna, surprises nobody, Tesla, XYZY, Airbnb, AIYY, and Coin. So a lot of these, they have high implied volatility, but some of these I have observed, and it just my opinion that some of these are better for like swing trading than actual cover call ETFs as a strategy. And just because something has name recognition or the volume to support this kind of ETF, maybe it's just not that appropriate for this kind of a strategy. But it's not necessarily YieldMax's fault that, Moderna was poised to be one of those momentum stocks that really explode, but then it exploded in the opposite direction. Tesla is always up and down. Coinbase is much the same. I think the Nvidia is it's just the short Tesla, short Nvidia, and short coin. So fiat and dips and crash. Like Nvidia's been doing so well. Coin, like both the long and the short are doing the reverse splits. And just because I don't feel the urge to invest in Coinbase as a single stock or Tesla as a single stock doesn't mean that you're wrong for wanting to do that, or that other funds besides YieldMax have more reasonable strike prices and therefore they can succeed. Those are things that could be true, but I just don't invest in them. So, in conclusion, I understand the hate that ULTY is going through. I think that they have made changes to how the fund works before they did the reverse split, even if there's not a lot of time that it's being implemented for. And I hope, just because I still have 1,000 shares and I know other people that do have ULTY, that from now on until the end of the year, we do continue to have, a bull run and not just continue pulling back for the rest of the year. And so we can see if this new strategy works with ULTY. If there's a major correction from December 1st until the end of the year and everything loses 30%, I'm not going to expect ULTY to retain its NAV or anything like that. So we will see. We're just going to watch and observe, and I'm going to keep an open mind, and we'll see. I just don't think that the single stock ones are that bad for YieldMax's reputation, and that ULTY is really the one that we're all anxious, but like we're fascinated by. So today on Financial Philharmonics, we have Buy the Lows, which is a country dirty South song about buying the dips and how if you don't buy the lows, you will always buy high. And I'd like to thank today's members, also for all 4,099 of you that have decided that I'm entertaining enough to subscribe to. I really appreciate that, and you all taking the time to listen to me and helping this channel grow. But I would specifically like to thank the members. Let's thank Jetta, Omega Werewolf X, in my opinion, BGP Automotive, Pedro Spalding, Bill Bryant, Shane O'Mac, Michael Holiday, Scott Behringer, Paulette Pierre, Russell O'Malley, and Eric. You all are amazing, and thank you so much for making your bad financial decisions together with me. I appreciate you all so much, and you're making YieldMight and this YouTube channel more sustainable for me to continue to do this as my full-time job. So I super appreciate you, and my question for you is, what are your feelings on this reverse split? And I'll talk to you all later. Bye.